Welcome to the new Are We Nearly There Yet podcast. I'm Sonia, wife to James, mum to Hudson, Tilly, Elwood and Kit, who range in age from 12 down to 7. I'm also the families lead at Kerith Community Church. In each episode, I'm going to have a conversation with someone relating to this journey we are on in parenting and family life. If you're looking for expert parenting advice, well, you've come to the wrong place. I do hope though that this will be a place to share, to find affirmation, a place that may challenge our thinking, open our eyes to other people's situations and ultimately help us realise we are not alone in this journey of parenting. Perhaps you are just starting out, or perhaps your children are nearly adults. Whatever your situation, you are all welcome to join us in the conversation. This week I chatted to Angela, a mum of 6 children. Yes, you heard that right, 6. Listen in and come join us in the conversation. Welcome to Angela. Welcome, Angela, for joining me on the Are We Nearly There Yet podcast. How are you, Angela?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you.
Good.
Some people listening to this will know you already, but for those that don't, tell us a little bit about your family.
Yeah. Well, I'm married to John and we've been married for 20 years and we've been coming to the Kerith on the Bracknell site for about 9 years, and we really call it our home. We really love our church family and have really valued their support, encouragement and prayers over the years. We have 6 wonderful children, twins Ben and Phoebe, they're 15, Richard 14, and triplet boys James, Jacob and Daniel, who have just turned 7. I think our family is quite pretty unique in the fact that we have a set of non-identical twins and a set of identical twins within the triplets. And if it's okay with you, Sonia, I'd love to just share a little about our story and how we came to have these 6 children.
Please do, yes.
Thanks. When we got married, we were really keen to have children, and this just didn't seem to happen naturally for us, and the doors seemed to shut. And we had 2 kind of failed IVF treatments. This at the time was quite an emotional roller coaster of a journey, and it was kind of marked with quite a lot of pain and anguish at the time. However, we felt a kind of sense of God calling us into adoption, and we adopted Ben, Phoebe and Richard 13 years ago as a sibling group of 3, which was brilliant.
Wow.
When we went into adoption, we really felt that we wanted to have a family, and so we really felt that we wanted to adopt a sibling group of 3 because we felt they were coming from the same background, possibly the same level of trauma, and we thought, let's just do it in one full sweep, really.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. The social workers at the time said, you know, you'll be lucky to get a sibling group. We were approved of a sibling group from 0 to 7 years, and they said at the time, you'll be lucky to get a sibling group under the age of 7. And we adopted 3 under the age of 3.
Wow.
Ben and Phoebe were 2.5 and Richard was 18 months, and all 3 of them are only 11 months and 2 weeks apart.
Wow.
And then if we fast forward a bit, 5 years later, I was in a service actually, and Ben was preaching at the time, and I just felt God promised us more children. We then embarked on another IVF treatment and fell pregnant with triplet boys. Despite the complications, we had twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome.
Yeah.
And they were born at 13 weeks and 1 day, and the boys thrived and grew, and here we are with 6 beautiful children. We've seen God's amazing provision on our lives. God's good, and I can honestly say the love that you feel for both the adopted and our biological children are the same. I think, in fact, if I'm honest, my edge of protection comes a little bit more around the 3 adopted children, knowing they have a story to share.
Yeah.
I myself come from a family of 4, mum, dad and my brother Andrew. Mum and dad were thrilled to be blessed with a boy and girl. Myself and my brother are 18 months apart, and it was kind of really special being so close in age in many ways. Our friendships overlap, and he was always there for me at school. I have very fond memories of family days out with cousins and sleepovers with grandparents. And actually, my dad last year was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and I think it was really special that I had a brother to share that with and to share the load. Our primary focus was on mum and dad at the time, and it was really great to have Andrew's support at that time. Yeah, so yeah, that's my family, and that's our family.
Wow, Angela, mum to 6 children, and I know also that you work outside the home, don't you?
I do.
Work inside the home, I'd imagine, as well, with 6 children.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Yeah, thank you. It's an amazing story, isn't it? An amazing story of God's goodness. But tell us a little bit about the work that you do outside of your home as well.
It's interesting. So I'm a what they call a bank community nurse. So I work in the community, and being bank really gives me the flexibility to choose the days and hours I work, and that's family life has always been my first priority. So I'm able to work the shifts around my husband's shifts. He works permanent nights, so I pick the days around his shifts, and I normally work 1 day a week. But during the pandemic, I've increased my hours to do 2 days a week. For me, I always wanted to be a nurse. Years ago, I really felt that it was my destiny to be a nurse. And I've been nursing now for over 25 years. In the community, we get to kind of go into vulnerable housebound patients, and we get to come alongside them. We get to support junior members of staff, and we learn from them too. And we're quite autonomous in the community. So we go back at lunchtime and feed back in our small teams. It's a real privilege to be a nurse out in the community, and just come alongside patients and their carers and their family. We self-isolated mid-March. I was actually at work and I suddenly felt very unwell, very nauseated, and it was, I don't think I've ever had to leave a shift, but it just came on very suddenly, and I rang to say I needed to go home. I had to actually park up on my way home because I wasn't sure whether I was going to actually physically get home. I felt so unwell. I wasn't sure whether I needed to be sick, whether I was going to vomit. And actually I parked up outside of a church, and I just remember praying, I need to get home. I rang John to say I was on my way home, and I just felt as if I was literally just going to fall in the door. And I just went straight up to bed. I had a temperature, and fortunately the next day, even though I didn't feel brilliant, I was able to get back to the children and carry on. For the following 2 weeks, I had headaches on and off and didn't feel 100%, but thank goodness I managed to carry on with the children. John then had it 40 hours later, and then 2 of the children, Daniel and James, about 10 days later had symptoms as well. So it's difficult to know whether we had COVID, but we think we probably did because it was at that pre-testing time.
Sure, yeah.
So during that time, it was great, really. I was able to still work from home during that self-isolating time, and I was taking palliative support calls from home.
Okay.
So I was just doing my 1 day a week, and that was amazing to provide that emotional, physical, and psychological support to the patients, kind of virtually, really. So that was an amazing privilege again. Currently, during this time, I'm now back in what they call a clinical hub, triaging patients over the phone and prioritising their care and allocating patients to the appropriate nurses with the right skill mix. And yeah, it's out of my comfort zone. I think I'm used to face-to-face contact with patients, but at the moment we really feel it's God's provision for our family, and yeah, you know, that's where I'm placed at the moment, just for a season. And I'm sure that face-to-face contact will come back shortly. I mean, we get as many as 120 calls a day. Wow. So by the time I get home, I can feel quite frazzled. So at the moment, I'm just doing that 2 days a week.
Just 2 days a week on top of everything.
Just, yes.
Angela, like, you are obviously a really busy lady, and you must have like a really large capacity to look after all the people that you look after, both within your home and outside your home. I'm just wondering, how do you carve out space for yourself and also space for you and John as a married couple?
Yeah, I think in all honesty, it's not always easy to set aside that time, and especially for you. I think when you've got children, you always put yourself last, but I also think it's really, really, really important that you care for yourself too. I think for me, I belong to a morning prayer cast that Simon Benham leads, and the team of senior leadership in the church. And for me, that just gives me a few minutes in the morning with God to reflect and to be encouraged and to be inspired by God's people.
Yeah.
There are mornings that I may miss it, and when I miss it, I just feel it really changes my perspective throughout the day, and it's just great to start the day with God. And the children know that that is my time, so I really appreciate that. We also about a year ago now started a weekly prayer group called Mums That Pray, where we intentionally pray for our families and children, and that was brilliant. It was really hard for me in the evening to carve out that time, so we meet during the day, and we've still managed it through lockdown to meet virtually after the school day. And it's amazing. We've really been able to share the highs and lows of life. We've cried together, we've laughed together, and we've really seen prayers answered. We've really seen fruit during this time of meeting, and it's been great. So that's for me, I think that's another time that I carve out with God and with other people and for myself. I try and meet up with friends and colleagues from time to time, either enjoy a walk or a meal out together. I think also my job gives me a bit of me time to a point, and it lets me focus on other things and gives me a good life balance. And thinking about our marriage, I know that myself and John found it really invaluable years ago when we did the marriage course to have a look at how each of us feel loved in different ways. And for me, I feel really loved when John intentionally carves out time to spend time with me. And for him, it's when I speak encouraging words to him. So during this lockdown, it's just been amazing that he hasn't had to go, and he's currently furloughed, so he hasn't been on night shifts at all, and he's home 100%, and it's just been so lovely to have him and to have that time together. I think pre-lockdown, John works night shifts normally, Monday to Thursday, so Friday lunchtime would be our time together to just run through the week, share where we've struggled, have some lunch together, and I guess that was our kind of date really. We'd either go out, have a walk, or have that date at home. Grandparents have been great at supporting date nights, but we probably only manage to organise that once a month. Not that they're not willing, just to create that time. Once a year we try and get away for our wedding anniversary for a night, and that's been really good for us. So good for us both. Just to reflect on times past and also dream of times to come. So
definitely.
I think that's how but as I say, John's furloughed at the moment, so it's a huge novelty for us all to have him around every night. We really are a team, so I think that's how I managed to carve out time. So we really are a kind of a tag team, and appreciate that each of us need that time.
And I guess it's having to be quite adaptable with that in normal times, the family size of yours, because things will come up. A child may or have an issue at school, or ever-changing landscape, isn't it? And of course the last weeks as well, with us being in lockdown, I guess you've had to that Friday lunchtime date, it hasn't looked quite the same.
No, it's not happening. I think now we're grabbing a drink together.
Yes.
And I must admit now, we tend to get the time. The teenagers, so obviously the triplets tend to go to bed about 7ish, but we're finding they're not as physically tired as they were at school, so they're not switching off so quickly. And then the teens are going to bed between 9:30 and 10. And by that time, we're absolutely shattered. We're on our knees and we're wanting to go to bed ourselves. So we're trying to get them to go up so that we can have a bit of time ourselves, even if it's just half an hour to just be together and chat together. And but we are finding that even during the day, we're just grab times. We might both of us just go out in the garden together for 5 or 10 minutes and grab those times with a drink and just chat, and we have really appreciated that. I think in many ways we've had more time together through lockdown than previous.
We definitely have, and I think it is grabbing those moments, even if there are it's here and there, it's grabbing those moments, and I think what one of the good things that's come from this season, I'm hearing from a lot of people, is an appreciation in the simpler things of life and
Yes.
moments. So rather than going out on an extravagant date night out, actually sitting in the garden together at the end of the day for 20 minutes is a blessing and a gift, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've always said to John, I'm a cheap date. I don't mind where I go, as long as I'm with you. I think for me, it's just that time, spending that with John. So yeah, a walk, or I'm quite happy just just as long as we're together, really. So yeah.
Have you got any top tips for the rest of us parents? I'm sure it's you haven't got it all together all the time, but you have, and I know I have 4 children, you have 6 children. There are days, there are actual benefits to having more children that make life sometimes easier than when I had 1 or 2 children. So an example for us would be in this lockdown period, having got 4 children, when one of them falls out with another, which hasn't happened very often, they've got others to go and play with and go and hang out. I acknowledge there have been things that have been easier, but Angela, the reality is you have been homeschooling, you and your husband, 6 children. Like, help us out, help the rest of us out. Any top tips, anything?
I think what I've found, and as you say, is because they've got each other, and whilst they bicker, they fall out from time to time, they do have each other. And I think there's been massive advantages that they've got each other. And I know that Richard's been really good at baking with the triplets. He'll say, come on, I'm just gonna, and one of them will go off and bake together, and I've really appreciated that. Richard will often help them with the homeschooling. And I think just having each other to even just sit with each other and watch the TV together and snuggle up together, and it's just been invaluable that they've got each other during this time. I think they've done so well, and I remember when we adopted Ben, Phoebe and Richard, and I said they've done so well because they've got each other. And initially I felt they looked to each other for their stability and their attachments initially, and I think that's how they've done so well, because they've got each other. And I always say the triplets are 7 going on 17, they're trying to keep up with these teenagers. But it really does have huge advantages having the number of children we have. I've always said, even when other children come over, oh my goodness, it breaks up the sibling dynamics, and please, the more children we've got, the easier it gets.
I think the same,
and it really does, because it just breaks up that sibling, and they just all play together, and it's lovely. That's why we love having all the young people over. We love having a big house full, because in many ways it's easier.
So Angela, on these conversations, I really want to push into like a specific area of someone's experience as a parent. Looking at your kind of parental CV, there are so many different areas you could focus in on. Your journey to becoming a mum, you shared a little bit about that earlier, but that of infertility, then going from you and John to having this instant family of 3 children, what adoption entails, being a mum of a large family, or mum to multiple, so twins, triplets, just to name a few of the different areas we could focus in on. However, what really strikes me with you, Angela, whenever I've met you or seen you or talked to you, is that you just seem to have this absolute calm and peace about you. So really what I want to talk to for most of the rest of this conversation is, tell us about that calm and peace, because there will be those of us with less demands on our time and on our life than you have, who sometimes feel frazzled and stressed, and I'm sure you have those moments. You are so positive and so peace-filled. Are you always like that? It's an intentional thing, and where does that come from? I'd just love to find out more about that piece that you just kind of give off, this piece, and I'd just love to know more about that from you.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that people see things in us that we don't always see in ourselves, so that's very sweet of you to say that. I mean, I have been told at work that I'm relatively calm, which is very nice, but I think being organised and planning ahead has really helped. Not to be a perfectionist. I wouldn't say I'm a perfectionist at all, because sometimes the house can be in complete chaos, but I think planning ahead has really helped.
Yeah.
We sing a song, don't we? The joy of the Lord is my strength, and it keeps coming up. These words keep coming up, especially through lockdown. They just keep coming in my head, and I think really God gives me the grace for each day. And I think it's important that we don't look too far ahead. I think people often worry for me and worry about the future. Oh my goodness, how are you going to manage with triplets going through GCSEs all the time, and how are you going to financially manage when they come to drive, and things like this. But I think for me, it's really important personally that I don't look too far ahead, that I just have the grace for each day. And I always say to the children that no 2 days are the same, that it's new every morning. So while one day might seem, oh my goodness, that was really hard, and they didn't seem to listen as well as they normally do, or toe the line with the boundaries. No 2 days are the same. So I always say to the children, it really is new every morning. I mean, life is busy and our household is noisy at times and can feel quite frantic. And I think we've just had to be flexible to adapt. We've just had to adapt. And that's thinking on our feet, and juggling lots of balls in the air and just thinking on our feet. I think in all honesty, I think I'm still learning to stop and rest and have that pause time. And I know Pete Gregg, in his book on how to pray, one of the key things is having that time to pause, and then obviously going to rejoice and ask and yield, but having that intentional time to pause. And I think the Prayercast has really helped me cultivate that time of silence and pause, to reconnect with myself and with God. I think over the years I've learned to pick my battles with the children. This means standing back and walking away at times. I know for me that I love Premier Praise because I'm able to listen to that during the day and be houseworking and doing the ironing, and often I'm at the kitchen sink, at the kitchen sink a lot. And this just keeps me connected and focused on God. I've got to be honest, I don't tend to read a book from cover to cover. I tend to flick through books and flick through magazines, and I enjoy reading Adoption UK and Nursing Times and Women Alive, and I found them really helpful. And I tend to just, for me as well, I think because it is so busy and can be so busy, I tend to pray throughout the day and talk to God as if I'm just talking to you, as a conversation throughout the day. So not necessarily intentionally sit down, but just as I'm doing stuff, I'm having a conversation in my head with God about what's going on, and I think that's been really helpful. And I know my mum and John's parents, they've really been our prayer warriors, and we've really valued their prayers, and they've been with us through the challenges and the achievements, and really carried us through when times have been tough.
So both sets of parents are.
Yes, well, my dad isn't. We're still praying. And I said to him only today, actually, because he's just had a virtual oncology. So he was diagnosed with prostate cancer last year, and he's just had a virtual oncology consultant appointment this week, and his prostate marker PSA is negligible, so that is amazing. And I said, Dad, we've had so many people praying for you. So we're still praying for him. But my mum and John's parents, are Christians, so and I guess for me, lastly, I trust that God knows the end of the story, and he'll see us through no matter what. And that he'll never let us down. I think that's really where my peace comes from. I think when you're a Christian, it's that peace that sometimes surpasses all understanding. And I worry sometimes that I don't worry enough. I seem to not, but I think it is just giving it over to God. And I feel as if sometimes I'm leaving my worries or my bags, putting everything and laying it at the foot of the cross, and leaving it in Jesus's hands. And
we're told
that's where my peace.
We're told in the Bible, aren't we? Do not worry. Do not worry. Try not to worry. Or don't worry if you can help it. It's do not worry. It's like it's not to worry. And some of us are still working on that. But I was so struck. I'm just struck by the way that loads of things that you've said, but the power of praying parents, like parents in your lives. The fact that earlier when I asked how you carve out time for yourself, it was the prayer cast, it was the prayer group with your and you just weave that relationship and conversation with God through every moment of your day, it would seem, and that is just so evident in your life, Angela. And yeah, when we look at you and see that peace, I know where that comes from, and I want more of that for myself because I see that in you. So I just want to say thank you to you for the way you have been such a testimony.
Thanks, Sonia. I
you
think
could have said, no, carry on, sorry.
I think as well, I love worship. So for me, worship, connecting with God through worship has just over the years been invaluable, and I find God speaks to me through worship. And I mean, the children know I can be, 1 minute, especially with Premier Praise, I can be on my knees. They've seen me, just Premier Praise is practically on all the time in our kitchen. And it just always touches me hearing people's testimonies and stories about how God's touched their lives. And I think it's really great as well for the children. I always think whilst the children are present, they're always they've got listening ears. And I just find worship just, that's another way God speaks to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Yeah, I just love what you've shared. You could have very easily said, to find time for myself, I go and shut myself in the bathroom and and scroll my phone for.
I do that as well.
Oh, good. It's not just me then. But no, I just love your heart and your deep connection with Jesus.
Thank you.
So
thanks.
We're just gonna come to an end in a moment, but this podcast is called Are We Nearly There Yet? Which I'm sure having children, you have heard quite regularly when on journeys with your children in the car. Are we nearly there yet? And obviously this journey for us as parents is never ending. Like we always on this journey. And I wonder if you were to look back at you starting out on this journey, have you got anything that you would be you would have in your luggage, your carry-on case, your essential items, if you like metaphorically speaking? It could be practical things, it can be your parenting philosophy, something fun, a recommended book or parenting strategy. What would be the thing that you would make sure was in your carry-on luggage for this journey of parenting?
I remember pre-children, actually, when we were youth workers. I remember our pastor at the time said to us, you're there to love and launch the children. And I really do feel that with our children, that it's really important to allow them to spread their wings and allow them to make their own decisions and to learn from their mistakes. And that we as parents are there to guide and encourage and bring comfort to them when it's needed. But I think it's really important you are there to love and launch. So I see my children with wings, and I love it when I can see they're getting increasingly independent and gaining confidence. And they make mistakes, but I think we're there to pick them up and say it's okay, and just to guide them. And even as parents, we make mistakes. So but I just remember that always being, it's really important to love and launch and not control our children's decision making, but to guide them. And I think for me, things that I would take on this journey, I think for me the most important thing is love. To love them when they're not necessarily lovable, but just to keep loving. To have patience even when it's in short supply, if I'm honest, but always needed. Communication, to keep talking even if we have to stay or hear unpalatable truths, but they can be dealt with, to keep talking and not sulking. I think consistency is really important, good boundaries in place. They'll always be pushed, but ultimately I feel they offer security. Kindness, always look for the good in each other and try and do and say kind things. Respect each other and realise we're all so different but unique and special and have much to offer within our family. Gratitude is a really big one. Have the attitude of gratitude. And I think I know God's blessed us with this family, and I really do feel that he'll provide everything we need on this journey. And if we stay close and travel with him, then we'll always get there with his help. And I think that's where our peace comes from as well. I think as well, provide encouragement, building the children up, pointing out the positives, and always encouraging what they can do and not what they can't.
Yeah.
And lastly, sharing not just our things, but ourselves, our lives, or each other. Sharing is caring, and I think all those things really make me appreciate our family.
Yeah.
They're the things I would pack if Yeah.
Thank you so much, Angela. All of those things are amazing, and I cannot wait to see the future of your children's lives as you've loved them and launched them, and to see where they go next. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks ever so much for having me. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Wow, wasn't Angela absolutely amazing? She is such a peace-filled woman, and that just comes out of such a close connection that she has with God. She mentioned the marriage course earlier in that conversation. That's a course run by the same church that created the Alpha course. It's called HTB, and information can be found at htb.org. She also mentioned a book by Pete Greig on how to pray, which will help us in building that closer connection with God. Thank you for joining us in the conversation on Are We Nearly There Yet? We hope you'll come back again next time.